Good afternoon and welcome to another amazing episode of Peace Zone with Peace Ambassadors on your favorite channel, Captain TV Abuja. And as I always ask you, how are you doing today? I know there's been cold and rain. I believe it's a rain of blessing. I hope you're becoming peaceful with yourself, others, and your environment. I hope you're ensuring justice, security, and development in your spaces. I'm Moses Abolade, your peace building facilitator and host. Notably, Peace Zone, just like I've been saying, we need partners like you to come and support this program, and that we will be able to sustain it and possibly reach wider audience. And with the number showing on the screen, you can reach out to us, and from there we will do justice to that. We have been treating the situation of conflict or the conflict situation in northern Nigeria, and that has been kind of expository for us because we've been able to we've delved into southern Kaduna, we've looked at Taraba, we've looked at Plateau State, and today we are right in the middle of Benue State. Benue State is that place where we are known for, which is the food basket of the nation. And joining me will be Mr. Nathaniel Msen Awuapila. But right before I get him on board with me, I will be joining virtually. Before then, I would just want you to relax, and when we go on the short break, when we come back, we'll be doing justice to the topic, which is Benue State, and we will be looking straight into farmer-header clashes. Please stay glued. You're welcome back from that short break where we're discussing different cases around northern Nigeria, and today, as I said, we'll be dealing with Benue State. By the way, I'm very used to Benue State. Have been there, and I know a lot of things going on there. And today joining me is current president of Society for Peace Studies and Practice, SPSP, who is a senior executive peace building practitioner with over 20 years of experience in peace building program management and practices. He is affiliated with different peace building organizations in Nigeria and across the globe. We're looking at what has happened recently, because in Benue State there has been recent concerns as regards issues of conflict, especially when it comes to farmer-headers clashes. Mr. Nathaniel, can you hear me?
I can hear you very well.
Oh, thank you very much. We lost you at a point, so you're welcome back.
Thank you.
How is Benue State right now? Let's start from that.
Well, Benue is reasonably peaceful compared to those days when the level of attacks and killings were more frequent, and the state was obviously helpless in the face of attacks.
Okay. It's good to know that Benue State is relatively peaceful compared to what it has been in the past. But I'll give you a brief background on this. Benue State is one of the core states holding the supply of food production in Nigeria, just like I said, and blessed with natural and mineral resources, just like other places too. We also know that this invariably had to the economic sector. However, the state has been drained from government killings to farmer-headers clashes, which is the main focus of this discussion, and there has been a lot of discussion around it. This has posed an adverse effect on the state and its agricultural sector, while farmers are usually left with a raised farm, or most likely they don't know what to do. So in March 2023, a report by Daily Trust reveals that a total number of more than 5,000 persons have been killed in 87 months due to harm, and few months between those few months. This is devastating, as you know, and we would like you to just start from the beginning. What is the background of the entire scenario of this conflict, so that viewers at home can have an understanding of where all this began?
Thank you very much, Moses. The story of the farmer-header crisis, I choose to call it crisis rather than conflict, as some people call it, and rather than as clashes, which gives the impression of two equal opponents exercising aggression against one another. I call it crisis because indeed it's a crisis. But whether it's a conflict is another question entirely, because you don't describe a situation as conflict when people who were not out to fight found themselves murdered, battered, displaced, and sent away from their original habitations for a protracted period of time. But the situation didn't start today. I remember clearly that 2010 to 2011 was the period when the farmer header issue became obvious. It became obvious because around that time you had armed headsmen's attacks as alleged, because that is the name that it's always been called. It's become a popular description. You had attacks and killings, merciless killings and displacement of people around the West axis of Benue State. Where West is a border local government, and the locations that were attacked were locations by the river banks. Eventually, we had the cases in Agatu, which was popular. It gained famous. It gained international reputation. Gradually, over the years, it went to Goma, which again, became the hub in the recent years. But most of the local governments that are by the banks of River Benue, and the few that are in the hinterland, have been attacked, and we understand why. These are communities by the riverside. The cattle would come in, graze, enter farmlands, destroy them, enter homelands. And the aggressive attackers would rise against anybody who dared to stop them and would kill them. Some in cold blood. Women killed, while pregnant killed, and so on. So it's a story that is more than 10 years old. Some of the highlights of this case, after it became public knowledge by 2011 that it was a growing crisis, it continued almost unabated because there were no conflict preventive measures in place. There were no systems for managing conflict, effective systems for managing crisis. The strength of the traditional institutions that also have a legal mandate for resolving conflicts got weakened, because at some point traditional leaders were accused of colluding with the attackers, taking monies from them and allocating lands to them for grazing and pasture. And so that institution that could have addressed the situation at the grassroots became weakened and lost the trust of many people, and young people in some communities rose against traditional leaders who eventually also lost credibility in the face of many. And in the absence of a peace-building agency in the state, and low capacity for prevention, minimal capacity for effective and sustained conflict resolution, and the absence of effective related agencies that would address the situation, it got to a crisis point. Some people have published that Benue State lost hundreds of thousands of lives, but the agency in charge of emergency management announced figures that are several times more than that. It's a conflict that has affected Benue State to such a degree that out of the 23 local governments in Benue State, perhaps none has been spared. Or if we measure level of impact, you would say that at least 21 local governments have been significantly affected.
That's
and
really
this
serious.
is because, as you said, Benue State is highly fertile and it's known to have pasture that is perhaps unequaled in most parts of Nigeria. That is the situation as it is at this point.
Wow. That's a great trajectory, and you've even answered some of my premeditated questions That also shows that there is more to be done. So I will also want us to go into the stakeholders analysis of those who have been involved, looking at the victims right now, looking at also perpetrators of this violence, and also paying attention to the authorities, regulatory bodies, or people who have acted as voices against these heinous crimes in your contest, just like you did a contest or concept clarification. So I would like you to help us identify those who are in these different categories.
Thank you very much. Some of them are very well known. So generally, when you describe the situation, you have two that come out very clearly. You have farmers and you have those described as herders. But they are not the only actors. And as a matter of fact, Benue State comprises almost 70 to 75 or more citizens that are engaged in agricultural activities. But then apart from these, you had government as a stakeholder too, and the party. Government, especially the state government, especially became a conflict party when, in trying to address the situation, the state enacted a law prohibiting open grazing. The Open Grazing Prohibition and Ranches Establishment Law of 2017. Government initiated, responding to the call of citizens to have a law that would address the situation, passed the law. Now, due credit must be given to the young people of Benue State, who rose in their numbers, organized themselves, and formed what was popularly called the MAFO standing for Movement Against Fulani Occupation. One of the outcomes of their advocacy and activism was the drafting of bits of bills, 1, 2, 3 of them, that were eventually packaged together for presentation to the State House of Assembly. It was at that time that the government recognized the need for that law, and the Governor Samuel Otom-led administration took it up, made it a government bill, and it was very speedily passed. The law provoked a negative reaction from the headsmen, not just the headsmen, or precisely not the headsmen, but the Mieti Ala Cattle Breeders Association and the related agencies that oversee issues touching on herders in the country. And so there was promise of aggression, which we also saw come to pass in the following months and years.
What was the aggression?
All the actors were traditional institutions that should have addressed the situation, but got weakened because of their compromised or perceived compromised positions. We also had other groups. So eventually we now had militia groups that sprang up across the state, and in the attempt to try to address the situation, aggravated it by making the level of violence more prevalent. We had other government agencies trying to respond to the crisis, such as the SEMA, which did well in responding to the impact, but less in preventing or ensuring that people moved very speedily away from the compromised locations where people were being killed very, very much. Civil society was among the actors in the sense of their activities, including in attempts to intervene and to try to address the situation in pockets of locations to do that. So you can, the list can continue, it can be much longer than that, but these were the very obvious ones. Now, beyond these were security agencies. Security agencies have always been the immediate thing you see government do when there's crisis. But you know what the military do, you know what security agencies do when they come into a situation. They may try to make sure there is perceived peace, so no aggression. But then communities tend to suffer other impacts of their presence. And so we had a number of people complaining across the state that their rights were trampled upon, at the least provocation, you had the houses and people attacked by the military or alleged to be members of the military and so on. So, you can continue beyond that when you're listing them.
Yes, thank you so much. I really wish we have more time.
Maybe I shouldn't end without saying, because in doing conflict analysis, you talk of, people that may be actual or perceived stakeholders. So
yes,
at
that's
some
what
point,
I was.
The federal government was also treated by the government and people of Benue State as a shadow party. Because a lot of people at the time felt that the federal government was playing roles that helped to aggravate the situation. And to some extent, the federal government was seen as a major stakeholder in that regard. Wow,
that's also another angle that I think is very, very, very sensitive. And I would just say possibly maybe one last question because of the time. And I know that you've been here before, and I believe that you'll be here again for another discussion like this. And we hope that something of this nature, we pray that conflict situations like this get resolved finally and they don't reoccur. So I would just like your recommendations to different parties involved in the conflict, especially victims so far and other people who have been affected in one way or the other. I just want your recommendation in like 1 minute or two. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Moses. A lot has happened between the time the crisis started and today. Between 2018 and 2020, we had a number of interventions from international actors, but the most outstanding of them was that by the United Nations through their various agencies. But the UNDP helped the states to draft a bill which was passed into law, signed into law by the government, by His Excellency Governor Tom on the 21st of September 2022. That provided for establishment of a peace commission in the state. Now, this is June 2023, and the commission is yet to be activated. It's a situation that needs to be addressed.
We lost him at that point, but I want to say special thanks to our guest, Mr. Nathaniel Msen Awuapila, who joined via a phone call though, and he's also talking about the Peace Commission, how they will be activated, and I know that we'll still bring him back, hopefully one of these other episodes to finalize some things he have to say. To viewers at home, I want to say thank you for joining in for this particular edition, and I want to say your support and what you're doing is really making a great impact. And just like I shared while we started, please do well to sponsor and partner with us on this show. My deepest appreciation goes to Captain TV management team, Abuja, and management team of PepNet and the Peace Zone crew for doing a wonderful job to make this a success. And to everybody doing wonderful work in different spaces, I want to say you're doing a very good job. Keep doing it, and together we'll make a solid impact. Join me again another episode of Peace Zone while we discuss similar issues. Please, before then, please stay peaceful, stay safe, stay developed, and I'm sure that we will all build a peaceful world together. Bye for now.